नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्मविद्या संप्रदायकर्तृभ्यो वंश ऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः। सर्वोपप्लवरहितः प्रज्ञानघनः प्रत्यगर्थो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। So we were still studying the benediction, the Mangala Charana, which we just pronounced right now. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahmavidya Sampradaya Kartribhyo Vamsharishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo. This is our prostration to Brahma, etc., who created this lineage through which this Brahma Vidya, this knowledge about pure consciousness has come to us. We discussed what Brahma here stands for. The same entity which is also called Hiranyagarbha and Prana, the omnipresent life force as the source of this, as the ultimate, as the final source of this wisdom. So the first prostration is to that entity, to that Brahma, to that Hiranyagarbha, to that Prana. The second prostration after that is Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahadbhyaha, to the Rishis of the Vamsha, to the Rishis of this lineage. Now what does a Rishi stand for? What is a Rishi? What does he mean? We had already discussed a little bit in our previous class that even it's very difficult for us to know today their exact number. We don't know how many of them were to whom the knowledge, the wisdom of the Vedas, which is referred to here by the word Brahma Vidya, knowledge about pure consciousness, was revealed, it's very difficult to ascertain their number. But these were the first human masters, the first receivers of that wisdom. And then the third entity that the benediction will prostrate at is Guru, the master. That we will discuss later. Rishibhyo. So the words that were used here are Vamsha, Rishibhyo, Mahadbhyo. These two words, or three words, Vamsha, Rishi and Mahat, these three words we will discuss to understand what a Rishi means, what a Rishi stands for, what does the word Rishi itself mean. First of all, the adjective Mahat. Mahat means simply honorable, great. Someone, and therefore we use words like Mahatma, Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi, the one with a great heart, with a vast open heart. So Mahat means great, honorable. Vamsha Rishibhyo. Vamsha is a Sanskrit word which means bamboo. The bamboo tree. And here it refers to the lineage in which each rishi is like a section in the bamboo stick. So we have to keep that image. And that is the reason the word for lineage in Sanskrit is the same word for bamboo also. Because each master is like, and that is how the lineage continues, that is how the bamboo continues. Each master is like a section in that bamboo stick. So Vamsha Rishibhya. Now, human consciousness is generally directed outwards. We all experience that. Registering external names and external forms. The rishis were ancient human beings who had learned to direct the stream of awareness inward, which then allows awareness to register not something out there, but the realities, the truths, the virtues, the nobilities that reside within. And the ultimate source of awareness itself. It's like looking at oneself. The moment we direct our attention to ourselves, we are looking at ourselves. So awareness gets a chance to look at itself and at its very source, which enables them to become aware of awareness itself and of its source. But the only thing that they had to do was to direct their attention inwards. And this is what a rishi does. If we can compare attention as a telescope, then rather than using the telescope to peep into the vastness of this universe, for once changing its direction and using it to look at the depth that lies within, which is as the masters of the Upanishads, the space within is as big as the space without. Because ultimately everything that we see out there, we think we see out there, we are actually seeing it within awareness. So one of the central ideas of the Upanishads is, this comes back really to one of the central ideas of the Upanishads, that even though consciousness is omnipresent, the best place And the first place in which we can fully experience it in its essential nature, in its all majesty, is within the heart itself. And when I use the word heart, in English I'm using it as a translation of the cognate word in Sanskrit, hridaya. And hridaya is not simply just up here. It's the complete interaction that happens in the emotional center here and with the mind up here. So like Shankaracharya, when he explains the word hridaya being used in the Upanishads, he says buddhi manaso reki kritya nirdeshaha. This continuous stream of thought that occurs along with all the emotions, all the feelings, all the thoughts, that and the faculty of understanding, the faculty of comprehension, these two together is what the word hridaya stands for. And we should not forget that this region, what lies within here, these, even just if we look at the physical tools that are there, then they are the most complex physical tools in the known universe. This brain, the heart, the interaction between the heart, how the heart reacts under particular circumstances, and how then it is interpreted by the brain as fear, as love, as all these various emotions. So emotions are not solely dependent on the brain. They are deeply connected and related to our heart. That is the reason we don't feel them up here, we feel them here. Emotions we feel here, in this center. So this is the most complex. We have been able to reach the very depths of the subatomic particles in our understanding, but when it comes to understanding our own self, particularly consciousness, still we are faced with many mysteries. So what lies, the capacity that these tools give us, with a little bit more training, with a little bit more refinement through the practice of yoga, and by changing its direction from the external reality into the internal reality, a person can become aware of that omnipresent reality within. Because it is omnipresent, it is also present within. It is also present within the mind. It is also present within the intellect. And once it is understood there, it is experienced there, then the idea of the yogic masters is that its very nature is like this, that it can be understood in the same way as being existent everywhere else. So the entire focus of the yogic traditions, first of all, is to make a person aware of it within themselves as the very first step. And this journey, this internal journey, unfolds very naturally when a person practices meditation and self-inquiry. When these two things become a very part of our life, and these are the two things that the Upanishads speak about, whether it is yoga essentially means meditation. Kathopanishad in great detail speaks about it, and when Aitareya Upanishad comes with this question, which was the question that was asked again and again by Ramana Maharshi, and inspired this whole doctrine of self-inquiry, atha kohamiti, but then who am I? This question. When a person practices these two things, then this journey naturally starts to unfold. And once a centripetal tendency is created within human consciousness, then there is no need to search after truth anywhere else. It is found within. A person actually finds that omnipresent truth has already reached us within the very depths, within the very core of our heart. And this is what is beautifully presented in one of the mantras of the Rig Veda, that these great masters talking about the rishis and how they learnt by trial and error because they did not have masters to tell them what to do. So they had to have trial and error. They had to try things. So about these rishis, and that is one of the beautiful things about the rishis. Unlike the avatars who are perfect, who are born perfect, Krishna is born perfect, Rama is born perfect. The rishis, the original forefathers of the Vedic culture, because the avatars were born within the Vedic culture, but the original forefathers were in most cases not perfect. They were, it seems like the Buddha, they were a common human being. They were trying, there were trial and errors were there committed, and eventually they found something. So they have their limitations. Sometimes the life stories become a little bit problematic about them because they make their mistakes and they learn from them. The main point is, that's why people sometimes don't want to speak of their life stories. They are sort of a little bit suppressed in mythology, because some of their life stories are, they committed mistakes. Fine, what's the problem? What happened after committing those mistakes? The fact that they stood up and walked ahead, fell down a few times and still kept on standing up and finally reached it. That is the most important thing. But religion is a beautiful, complete package, sort of cannot accommodate that very well. And that is the reason sometimes their stories are a little bit suppressed or not so much favored, like all the beautiful stories of Krishna and Rama, which are perfect in every possible way, are rather favored. But this mantra speaks about a similar trial by such rishis. Asme vatsam parishantam navindan. Vatsa means a dear one, a beloved one. So now we have always to remember that the Vedic language is very allegorical. So they were trying to search their beloved one despite it being present everywhere, all around. Parishantam, Sat means to be present and Pari means all around. Despite the fact that they were told that it is present all around them, Navindan, they could not find it. Icchantaha, however they desired to find it, they could not. Shrama yuvaha, they did tremendous effort. Padavyaha, they kept on trying different paths. They kept on walking here and there in search of it, everywhere, all over the face of this earth. If it's everywhere, then we should find it. But then, after they could not find it anywhere, dhyandha, they withdrew their awareness. They allowed their understanding to get settled within themselves, and then they realized, pade parame charu agnehe, that we are already sitting in what we were finding, what we were trying to search, what we were trying to find all the time. The moment they entered within, they just found it within themselves. There was no need to search for it anywhere else out there. So this is what a rishi stands for, and that brings us to the very grammatical meaning of the word rishi, because the root rish means to go, or it means to reach. But the beautiful thing in the word rishi, in the explanation that one of the Vedic mantras gives of the word rishi, is that not someone who has reached the truth, but someone who has been reached by the truth. In that sense, not someone who has reached the truth, but someone who has been reached by the truth. It is in Rigveda Aitareya Aranyaka that this beautiful teaching that Ajan Havai Prishnim, those they were clean-hearted rishis, which means they had performed Chitta Parikarma in the understanding of Patanjali by practicing. Chitta Parikarma means cleansing of the heart, which happens when a person cultivates Maitri, universal friendliness, Karuna, compassion, Mudita, happiness in one's life, and forgiveness. These four things, and later on all other yogic practices, pranayama, etc. In fact, the whole idea of Ashtanga Yoga is about inner purification. Ashtanga Yoga is nothing else than a method of purifying the inner tools, the mind, the heart, the faculty of understanding. That is what Ashtanga Yoganganushthanad Ashuddhikshaye. When after the practice of the 8 limbs of yoga, the ashuddhis, the impurities are eliminated. This is how Patanjali introduces Ashtanga Yoga in Raja Yoga. So they are essentially cleansing techniques. So when a person has cleansed, when these rishis, after they had cleansed their heart, tapasyamanan, were performing austerity. Now, austerity is just the closest we can get to the word tapas. Though austerity, the English word, does not convey the idea at all. It is one very small part of what tapas really means. But I will not discuss that right now. However, they practiced tapas, which is generating heat within, in the sense of the work that a person does within himself to create light. The light of knowledge, the light of wisdom, all that is called tapas. Earlier they used to make a lot of effort just to kindle a little bit of a small lamp, because they had to rub these sticks or stone, and then they had to make a lot of effort. All that effort that a person has to do within himself to kindle the light of awareness, all that, everything together, starting from the very fundamental yoga asana practice, pranayama, the thought, the activities, the contemplation, the thinking, everything is included in the word tapas itself, which is unfortunately extremely limited the moment we translate it with the word austerity. Austerity is also one aspect of it, as long as it is not harmful in the long run to the physical body and to our mind. That is very important. Again and again the yogic masters make it clear. After that, after they had done this, Brahma Swayambhu, the self-manifest consciousness. And do we need another lamp to enlighten a lamp? It's not required. The lamp in itself is enough to enlighten it. And it is in that sense that the word self-manifest has been used. A lamp illuminates everything around it as well as itself. That is how consciousness is experienced. That Swayambhu Brahma, that self-manifest pure consciousness, Abhyanarshat, reached them because they had opened their hearts to it. The very fundamental idea of the Upanishads is that like a fish, we are swimming in the ocean of knowledge, in the ocean of wisdom, in the ocean of insight. Yet, like Santa Kabir, this great 15th century mystic who really always has this knack to come to the very point, like a nail, he can nail down the point, the real point, when he says, Jal mein meen piyasi, dekhat avat mujhko hasi, which means, it's a famous song actually in Hindi by him, that the fish is thirsty in the water. When I see it, I cannot hold myself back from laughing at it. from laughing at it, that the fish is thirsty in water. So that is the point. That once a person, the only problem is that we need to create that receptivity within ourselves. Once that receptivity has been developed, then wisdom is all around us. So that is what these rishis did, and in that sense, that universal wisdom approached them, reached them. They did not reach it. It reached them because it was already there within themselves when they found it. And this we will come back to this discussion in one of the mantras in the Ishavasya Upanishad itself. Anejadekam manasoja, the fourth mantra, that the self is one in all beings and unmoving, yet is swifter than the mind. The senses did not reach it. It had arrived before. It is in that sense, it had arrived before. Before we reach within ourselves with awareness, it is already there. In that sense, it had reached us. It had reached the rishis. So rishis even don't claim actually to have reached it. They are so humble to put it in exact words that we just went within and we found it within. That's all. So the path which human consciousness needs to take to find the truth is very different from the path that we usually take to find the truth out there in the external world. The path is very different. One goes through the senses and one goes away from the senses. One is about drawing back the senses. That is what pratyahara stands for. The word pratyahara, when Patanjali uses it, he uses, and it is in that sense that they are sometimes also referred to as the path makers, as the ones who made the path or who discovered the path. They were the ones who discovered the path, yajjena vachaha, the path that has been expressed in these words, in the words of the Upanishads, in the words of the Vedas. Yajjena vachaha padavim ayan, they discovered this padaviya. Padaviya means actually a path, because pada means to walk with pada, pada means legs. And yet when we speak of a path, then what reminds me another mantra from the Vedas, anadhvagah adhvasupareishnavah, those who want to reach the other side of this path, they are actually the ones that never walk on a path. And these are sometimes, the very perplexing statements in the Vedas, mutually conflicting, yet it is in this very confliction that a person gets an insight into the kind of truth that they are trying to convey. So yes, they found the path. Tamanvavindan rishishu pravishtan, humanity came to know it as that knowledge entered into the hearts of those rishis. Tamanvavindan, the humans came to know it, rishishu pravishtam, as it entered into the hearts of the rishis. They bear it within their hearts, tamabhritya, after having borne it. Or how can I use the word born as a past participle of beer? What is the past participle of beer? Yeah, to be born. Yeah. So after having kept it, let me just express it like this. After having kept it in their hearts and nourishing it, vyadadhuh purutra, they disseminated it amongst all the people. Purutra means within all. They disseminated it within all. So this is the work. The work to disseminate is the work of the Guru. With that, we come to the idea of Guru. And because the work of the Rishi is simply just to receive it and nourish it within themselves, and then the expression that is used in the Vedas, which I clarified in one of my previous classes, when they actually chiseled the words in which that experience could be expressed, Hrida Tashtan, when they chiseled the medium in their hearts. So this is the work of a Rishi. He experiences it, he bears it within himself, nourishes it within himself, and then chisels the exact words through which it can be expressed. This is the work of a Rishi. When we use the word Rishi, we simply refer to a human being who does this job, who did this job in ancient India. That is, such a person is referred to by the word Rishi. Technically speaking, no one else can be referred to as Rishi. Of course, sometimes, for example, Patanjali is not a Rishi. Patanjali is a Muni. That is the second category. If you remember our earlier distinction of Shruti and Smriti, which we discussed, Rishi is directly related to the Shruti. And everyone else which is related to the Smriti, they are referred to as Muni. And Muni is a word that is derived from the root man, which means to contemplate. So Muni means a contemplative, someone who contemplates. And Patanjali therefore is usually Mahamuni Patanjali, the great Muni Patanjali. He is rather referred to traditionally. Today, Maharshi Patanjali Vidyapith, we find the word Maharshi being used, but this is today because today people are no more clear about what the word Rishi stands for. So they refer to Patanjali also sometimes as a Rishi, though he is strictly speaking, he is a Muni. He is a contemplative, which a Muni is someone who contemplates the Vedic mantras, who contemplates the Vedas and then explains it further through his teachings. And that is exactly what he did through the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which became the very foundational text of yoga philosophy. So he is a Muni. And for Muni is also, they are usually, the emphasis is on a silent contemplative, someone who practices silence for the sake of contemplation. And that is why the Sanskrit word for silence is mauna, the state of being a Muni. Mauna simply means the state of being a Muni. And it is interesting that I'm talking about this today, because today is Mauni Amavasya, the new moon on which traditionally everyone is supposed to be in silence. And yes, so today is Mauni Amavasya. That is what Mauna stands for. And a Muni, someone like Patanjali, is referred to as a Muni. Here, because we are studying the Upanishads, we are not concerned with the Munis. We are just concerned with the Rishis and then the masters, our direct masters. So there is no need of mentioning the Munis. If we would study the Yoga Sutras, we would mention the Munis. But here we are studying about the Rishis, so therefore they have not been mentioned. Coming back finally to the idea of Rishi, there is a very beautiful story which will inspire us even a little bit further in understanding what the word Rishi actually stands for and how to relate with it in our own life, personal life, because I keep on saying that the Vedic concepts, they talk of things as if out there. But ultimately, they are about things within. So, the ultimate Rishi Hiranyagarbha, we saw how he is within. that we discussed earlier. What about the Rishis? It's a complex discussion, and the Upanishads go into it. I will not discuss that, but how our senses and all our faculties of knowledge itself are a form of Rishi. This discussion is there in the Upanishads. Finally, the most beautiful discussion that is there about what is the Rishi within us. And it is presented in the form of a short story. There was a time came when there was no Rishi left on the planet Earth to guide humanity. Manushyaha Rishishu Utkramatsu Devan Abruvan. The Manushyas, the human beings, after all the Rishis had left the surface of the planet Earth, they went to the radiant ones and said, Kona Rishir Bhavishyati. All Rishis have left. So who will become our Rishi now? Who will guide us? Who will show us? At least we should have at least one Rishi. And then the radiant ones told them, Tebhya etam tarkam rishim prayachan. They gave them this Rishi of logical thinking. The word tarka. There the word tarka is used, which means logical thinking, logical analysis, application of the faculty of understanding. Effortfully. When we apply the faculty of understanding to something, when we engage it to something, that form within us of the faculty of understanding is the Rishi that was given to humanity then. And they said, till you follow this faculty of your own understanding, nothing can lead you astray. So that is ultimately the Rishi within. And this brings us to one of the fundamental ideas of which has been expressed by the yogic masters and by even the Buddhist masters, the great Shunyavadins, the great nihilists, that it is a very natural tendency of the human intellect that it is naturally inclined towards what it thinks for itself to be the best and what it thinks to be the reality. The intellect is naturally inclined towards that. Now we just have to we have to find a way to guide our intellect properly to that, which is the real, which is the ultimate real. And once it perceive it, we become naturally inclined towards it. And it is this natural inner inclination that we find within us, which draws us towards such discussions, the discussions that tell us about ourselves. This natural inclination that is there, that is the ultimate guide, which within ourselves, if we are not, because usually if there is nothing to pull it back, for example, our greed, our selfishness, our ego, these are the forces that pull it back. And that is the reason it gets diverted. If a person gets rid of these forces that lead us astray, the intellect, the faculty of understanding, the buddhi will naturally go into that direction. This is how yogis put it, and that is what the ultimate Rishi is there within us. Now when we talk of the gurus, the ones who helped to spread this wisdom and disseminate this wisdom throughout the world, we realize that how back in ancient times these masters, they traveled, I don't know, on foot or how different ways, the vast tracts of land, and actually inspired people in those vast nations by these teachings. And that takes me, for example, because Indra Udayanaji is sitting here next to me, whom I will request to say a few concluding words. Maharshi Markandeya, Maharshi Agastya. Agastya is a rishi of the Rig Veda, and he's the one who took the Vedic teachings to South India. He was the first grammarian of Tamil language, which makes him one of the most revered figure in the culture of South India, as well as in the ancient Vedic culture of most of Indonesia, Thailand, Cambodia, all these countries. So for example, if you visit Prambanan, this beautiful temple complex in Yogyakarta, in Jogja, in Java, and you visit these temples, you see beautiful statues of Maharshi Agastya, one of the Vedic Rishis, and his wife Lopamudra, who are both, she's a Rishika, which means she is a female poetess. Some mantras from the Rig Veda are ascribed to her. She was also a great Brahmavadini, which means it was her favored occupation to speak about pure consciousness, a female mystic, and so both of them are highly, highly venerated, even in the Indonesian ancient Vedic traditions, and that is what brings us to him because he's here from Bali. Everyone has heard of Bali, I guess. It is a very beautiful island. I think it was last year it was declared the most beautiful island, not only because of its natural beauty, but also because of its cultural and artistic beauty. And he represents the entire Balinese culture. And more beautifully, what he represents is the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, which he has helped tremendously to spread in Indonesia. Many people, I'm very bad at praising someone, especially if the person is sitting there, but it wouldn't be an exaggeration if we would say that he's the Mahatma Gandhi of Indonesia of modern times. I cannot say more than that. His immense work is related to Mahatma Gandhi in every possible way. Various Gandhi ashrams have been built in Indonesia, in Bali, due to his efforts. Now a Gandhi ashram is coming up in South Africa, where Mahatma Gandhi himself performed the first satyagraha due to his inspiration, and he is very much involved in every Gandhian activity that takes place in India, and not only in India, but Gandhi Peace Foundation and Rajghat Gandhi Samadhi, everywhere, wherever there is something related to Mahatma Gandhi. And that is the practical aspect of what we are discussing, because these deep teachings make no sense if they are not practiced, if they are not lived. And Mahatma Gandhi actually did it. He did it. And he was in a role which is the most unlikely role where you could practice these teachings. A politician, a leader of a country. And being a politician, he could actually stick to them to the very last moment, till he was assassinated for what he was doing. And which the date is coming very soon. It's just the 30th January. So that is what Mahatma Gandhi in modern times stands for. So just say a few words to everybody. Just
Okay, I'm Swastiastu. This is our greeting from Bali. Anyone of you come to Bali before? Amma Usta is not coming yet. I was invited Amma from more than 5 years, but finally maybe in 2016 Amma was Amma is really like my mother here because Prabhuji is my spiritual guru, and I took Diksha from Prabhuji in 2006. And Siddhartha is my guru and also my brother. And really, actually, I got real inspiration from Prabhuji. What is Mahatma Gandhi life? I met Prabhuji long time ago, it's around 1994. 1994, it's a long time ago. Then after becoming very close, then Prabhuji twice come to Bali. Maybe this year also Prabhuji will come to Bali, at least for 2 months. Then about Mahatma Gandhi, too big if we talk about Mahatma Gandhi. I just take a part of Mahatma Gandhi from education. Same like Swami Vivekananda, just January is what is the birthday of Swami Vivekananda. When Vivekananda ji also mentioned about when the education far from the world, we should come to the education. Therefore, I'm trying, when I start Mahatma Gandhi teaching, it's meant we should start for the poor.
So, thank you very much. Let us conclude with this short prayer. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः